Now, Laurie was a member of a small country church. The building with its 100-year-old steeple looked like something out of a Norman Rockwell painting. It looked as if it would be a safe enough place to attend church, but for Laurie it was anything but. See, Laurie had attended this church since she was a little girl. She knew just about everything about everyone who attended that church, everyone except perhaps her husband. Although she knew about the private lives of many of the members there, she was unaware of the private life her husband had developed. Under her nose, in a small community, he'd begun to see another woman. She may never have known if she had not found a receipt in the front seat of their minivan, a receipt from a nearby motel. Now, there was no legitimate reason for her husband to have been at that motel or paid for that room there. Now, Laurie had weathered many storms with her husband. She stood by him when he lost job after job. Presently, they were 2 months behind on their mortgage, and now he was spending money on a motel room to have sex with somebody else. The pain was almost more than she could bear. She felt too ashamed to tell any of her friends, and so she confronted him, receipt in hand. The minute he walked through the door, he immediately began to cry as she demanded and begged for an explanation. And he confessed it all to her. A co-worker had come to him for comfort in the midst of a painful marriage, and he had foolishly become involved in her marital turmoil. He became the one that she counted on for support and advice, and it had not been long before the emotional affair became a physical one. It had been ongoing for a relatively short period of time. He knew it was wrong from the very beginning, but he never felt anything more exciting or electrifying or forbidden. He had never felt more alive when he was in her presence. The affair and his explanation of how it made him feel, well, it devastated Laurie. He was sincere and genuine when he told Laurie that he would never see this woman again and would do whatever else Laurie wanted him to do in order to show his remorse and committed to her in their marriage. Laurie forgave him, and he indeed began to change. He stopped seeing the woman, began attending church like as never before. He did what Laurie wanted and seemed to do it out of a sincere desire to become the man that Laurie could be proud of. Everyone at church marveled at the radical change that came into his life. He volunteered for youth groups. He rededicated himself to his job. He even won himself a promotion. Flowers were sent to his wife on the first of every month, and he never missed an opportunity to compliment her or to express his devotion to her in public. He was the living example of a true transformation. He inspired other men to take a second look at their lives, and Laurie seemed to have the man of her dreams. People envied her to have a husband who was so fully devoted to her and her family. But something was brewing inside of Laurie. Beneath the facade of love and acceptance, she was not a happy woman. She was angry that her husband had broken their vows. She was angry that he had deceived her as he did. She was angry at the way that he made her feel foolish if she started to wonder about where he had been or why there wasn't enough money for the bills. He resented the positive attention that he was receiving. While she felt that he was no good two-timing husband, everybody else seemed to admire him for a strong character. She could hardly be around him. Other people lifted him up and put him on a pillar of integrity and said, "Wow, what a family man and great husband." She felt horrible about their marriage and felt horrible for feeling horrible. It was one huge dose of unfair that life had thrown right into her face. The biggest problem for Laurie was that her husband received so much attention just for doing what he always should have been doing in the first place. He was applauded for being the man that she thought that she had all along. She could not handle that she had been committed and dedicated wife, willing to stay with her husband after this radical betrayal, and no one noticed, and no one seemed to care. No one seemed to care that she had done the right thing every single day of her marriage, whereas he was willing to throw it all away. Laurie began to shut down, to isolate herself. She stopped contacting and connecting with others, including her husband. She quit going to church, and she sunk into a deep depression. And folks, this is just an example of what can happen when we can't resolve the feelings around a hurt. This is what can happen when we don't forgive. To live in this world, we live with the possibility of being hurt by somebody. The people who hurt you might be complete strangers, like a random act of violence we talked about last week, that Ryan Cushing, when he threw that frozen turkey and smashed through the window of Vicky Ravello's car. Or it might be your closest friends or family that we talked about here today. These are the hurts that are usually the deepest. And these are the hurts that are the very hardest to forgive. As a friend of mine once told me, I never knew how angry I could get until I got married. You see, it's an immense act of courage to love someone, whether it's a spouse, or a parent, or a child, or a friend. It takes a lot of courage to make yourself vulnerable by caring for someone so much that they can hurt you in ways that strangers just can't. And they know how to hurt you with a clarity that no outsider ever can. But regardless of whether you were hurt by a stranger who took your money and sense of security, or by your closest friend who took your trust, God calls on us to forgive. When Jesus walked this earth, he called on people to turn the other cheek, to walk that extra mile, to love your enemies as yourself. And on the cross, he pleaded with our Father in heaven, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Finally, after the resurrection, Jesus sought out Peter to forgive him for denying Christ 3 times. In life, in death, in life beyond death, one of the foundational aspects of Jesus' ministry was to call on us to forgive those who hurt us. Just as the Trinity is the relationship between Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, God sees relationships as vital for your life. And he says, don't destroy your relationships. And if they are hurt, and if they are strained, work on them for my sake. The reason Jesus calls us to forgive is that he knows the hurt that we've suffered. He doesn't want us to suffer anymore. Forgiveness has very little to do with letting somebody off the hook, and everything to do with moving past the event, healing from the hurt, and getting on with your life. Forgiveness has the power to change lives, to heal the soul. And that's the kind of power that Jesus wants you to have in your life. Forgiveness is not about letting someone off the hook. It's about moving past, healing from the hurt, getting on with your life, reclaiming the power and the sense of integrity and control of your life that you lost. It's about getting out of the role of the victim and substituting action for helplessness that you feel in the wake of that hurt. So what's the first thing we can do? How do we start this? Well, the very first thing you do, like I said, forgiveness is a process. The first thing that we have to do is mourn and grieve what we lost. Acknowledge the pain and the anger that we feel as a result of someone else's action. Then mourn and grieve what we've lost. This is what King David did. In our Bible passage for today, when David heard that Saul and Jonathan were killed in battle, he was devastated. And even though he and Saul had a falling out, Saul had been his mentor and his friend, and Jonathan had been David's best friend, who saved his life on more than one occasion. And upon hearing this news, he could have saddled up his horse, and he and his army could have went out and attacked and sought vengeance and destroyed villages and killed people and raped women. But that wouldn't have brought his friends back. And all it would have meant is more lives hurt and other people requiring vengeance for what had been done to them. Instead, look what he did. Then David took hold of his clothes and he tore them. And all his men did the same. All of them were filled with sadness, and they sobbed, the whole nation of Israel. They didn't eat anything until evening. That's because Saul and Jonathan and the Lord's army had been killed with swords. David sang a song of sadness about Saul and Jonathan, and he ordered it be taught to all the people of Judah, and he called it the Song of Bows, and it's written down in the book of Jashar. And listen to just one of the verses from this song. In life, Saul and Jonathan, they were loved and gracious. In death, they were not parted. They were faster than eagles. They were stronger than lions. My brother Jonathan, I'm filled with sadness because of you. You were very special to me. David, God's anointed, God's chosen, the warrior who killed a giant, the leader of men, the king of nations, the greatest king of Israel, put down the sword and he cried. And he gave his army permission to do the same. Then David gave words to his loss in poetry. In other words, he acknowledged the pain and anger that he felt as a result of somebody else's actions. And he mourned and grieved what he had lost. When we've been betrayed, wounded, broken, lied to or lied about, physically attacked, simply brought to tears, we are diminished. Something precious and valuable has been taken away from us. Or it's been made obvious that something precious that we thought we had, well, we never really had to begin with. When a close friend gossips about us behind our back, it hurts deeply. It hurts because a bond of friendship has been violated, perhaps broken. It hurts because that person that you've trusted enough to tell your secrets to invite into your home, into your private life, has broken that trust. And you feel foolish because you trusted that person who turned out to be untrustworthy. It hurts because something valuable has been taken away from you, and we're diminished by that loss. If a mugger steals your purse, it hurts. Not just because of the money lost, that can be replaced. It hurts because we lose that sense of safety, that sense of security of person, the sense of being in control of our lives. We feel violated, and the world becomes a scarier place. Something valuable has been lost, and we've been diminished by that loss. If your father was never there for you when you needed him, if he always put work first, never went to your Little League games, if he made wonderful promises that he never kept, if he drank away his paycheck and then walked out on the family, that hurts. Even though you've done nothing wrong, it hurts. And we're diminished. We have lost, or becomes obvious that we never had our Father's love, at least not in the way that we needed it. And we are diminished because we have lost out on the childhood that we should have had. these are significant hurts. These significant losses, and they generate powerful emotions. These emotions have to be felt, and those losses need to be mourned. Mourning is the expression of emotions and questions that occur around a loss. The emotions have to be expressed. You have to let it out. If you try to bury them, they'll be like a cancer within you. They'll never go away, and they'll continue to grow, changing you from the inside out, making you sick. If you don't acknowledge the pain and anger felt as a result of somebody else's actions, and then mourn and grieve what we've lost, then the emotions are not resolved in your lives, and they begin to revolve around the feelings of hurt, betrayal, and loss. We will live in a constant state of pain, hurt, and mistrust, anxiety, and fear. When we fail to mourn and grieve what we've lost, we're making a choice. We are making a choice to hold on to this pain that happened in the past and pull it into our present. And we are making the choice to make sure that this pain that we're feeling in the present gets brought into our future. These feelings may start out as small, but if you don't deal with them quickly, they can grow bigger and more powerful. They may even begin to crowd out the positive feelings that you have. Grudges filled with resentment, vengeance, and hostility will take root when you dwell on hurtful events or situations. You replay them in your mind time and time again. And all this does is keep your focus on the ugliest moments of your life to make you bitter and resentful. And they will change you, and they change how you act. Just take a look at Laurie in our story. Laurie needed to forgive her husband, but not instantly and superficially. She said she forgave him, but she never acknowledged the pain and the anger that she felt as a result of her husband's actions. She never worked through it. She never let it go. And her husband, God bless him, was actually turning things around. He was trying to be good to his word. He was actually making positive changes in his life, but she couldn't see them because she hadn't acknowledged how this affair had hurt her. Instead of focusing on the good things that he was doing in his life, she kept replaying over and over that ugly emotion, that ugly incident. She could not see or appreciate the good things he was doing because she was full of turmoil and pain and grief. She needed to find peace and forgiveness. But that can't come immediately after learning of a betrayal. Before you can forgive, you have to grieve what you've lost. She needed to acknowledge all that she went through, what she had lost, what it meant to her, so that she could grieve it, then forgive it, and then move on from it. So how do we do this? How do we acknowledge the pain and anger that we feel as a result of a hurt, mourn it, and move past it? Well, first of all, ask yourself, is there anything I've stopped doing because of what somebody else has done to me or said to me? Is there anyone that you resent or anyone that you're angry with? In Laurie's case, she stopped going to church. I stopped talking to her husband. I stopped connecting with other people. She's also angry at her husband for all that he has done and is bitter that everyone thinks that he's a great husband when really he was anything but. All this points to the hurt. Now, maybe you haven't anything so dramatic happen in your life. Maybe you find yourself angry at your mother. Or maybe you've had a hard time being around your brother. You don't invite his family to Thanksgiving like you used to. And when you meet him or his wife in the grocery store, you check out immediately and keep the conversation to a minimum. All this points to a hurt that you need to explore. Then ask yourself, who's hurt you and what did they do to make that hurt you so much? And the answer might be that, well, my mother hurt me when she gave that family silver platter to the silver serving platter to my brother. This identifies the people surrounding the hurt. the people who may have caused it or may be part of the event. Thirdly, ask yourself, why was it so painful? Why did it hurt so much? And the answer may be that it hurt because you always loved that silver tray. Your brother didn't give a whit about it, yet your mother never knew this. The woman who was supposed to know you the very best didn't know how much you loved it. Or maybe it has nothing to do with this. Maybe it was her most prized possession, and she gave it to your brother and not you, which means that you feel that she thought that he was more special than you were. And it makes you feel like she loved him more. Now, folks, I won't lie about this. To go through this will be painful and it'll take time. But if you break your leg, like my wife did, you might go to the doctor immediately, like my wife did. But it'll take a lot of time to mend. The same is true here. And how you answer these questions and go through this process will be different for each and every one of you. King David cried out and he wept. He ripped his clothes and he wrote poetry. In answering these questions, maybe you might want to journal it. Or write these questions down in a scribbler and then try to answer them. That way you can give voice to them and answer them. Or maybe this doesn't work for you. Maybe you need to talk with a close, trusted friend or your pastor or maybe in more extreme cases, a professional. But don't be afraid of doing this. The expression of the emotions and the questions that occur around a hurt will enable you to untie yourself from the thoughts and feelings that bind you to the offense that was committed against you. My friends, as I look in this congregation, I know that each and every one of us has been hurt by cruelty or thoughtless behavior or insensitive words. But as I look around this congregation, I can also say that resentment, bitterness, and anger are anchors to a past that cannot be changed. No matter what you do, your past will always be the same. But you can change your present and make a brand new future for yourself. The deeds can't be undone. Those words can't be unsaid. I cannot go back in time and undo the damage that I might have done yesterday or somebody else may have done yesterday. But we can undo the damage that it is causing today. We can acknowledge the pain and the anger that we feel as a result of somebody else's actions, mourn and grieve what we've lost. When we do that, we are making a choice. We are making a choice to flush these emotions and hurts through our emotional system. We are making a choice to let go of our past hurts by grieving, and we are making a choice to heal our future. This is the first step towards forgiveness. And when we do this, when we mourn and grieve our hurts, what we are doing, we are emptying ourselves of negative emotions so that we can fill ourselves with positive emotions and feelings. How do we do that? We'll come back next week and I'll tell you. But until then, all I can say is thanks be to God and amen.